My name is Mrs. Blako. I'm Head of Maths at Becket Keys. Today we've got a bit of a maths session on some magic tricks that you can perform using mathematics. So all you're going to need today is just a pen and paper. Our first trick, to start off with, I just need you to pick any number that's bigger than 1 but less than 100. So pick your number carefully, because the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to multiply it by 9. So you can choose any number you want, times it by 9, and then I want you to add together the digits. So by that, I mean if you had the number 246, if 246 was your answer, add the numbers together. 2 plus 4 is 6, add another 6 is 12. And then I'm going to add together the 2 digits, 1 plus 2, which is 3. So keep adding the digits together till you get a single digit number. And then from your 1 digit number, I want you to subtract 5, please. So take away 5. And then if your answer is 1, our letter's A. If your answer is 2, your letter will be B. If you've got a 3, that's C. If you've got 4, that's D, and so on. So using our little relate whatever number you've got to the corresponding letter in the alphabet. And then I want you to pick a country that starts with that letter. Any country starting with the letter that you've got. And then take the last letter of that country, and I want you to write down an animal that starts with that letter. So an animal starting with the last letter of that country. And then finally, take the last letter of the animal and write down a colour that starts with that letter. Once you've done all of that, I should be able to see what you've written and tell you that I think you've got Denmark, I think your animal is a kangaroo, and the colour is orange. So let's look at how I know this, or why I think I know this. So why does this work? Well, the magic thing here is the multiply by 9. So if we start with a sort of a nice easy number, say I pick the number 3. Well, 3 times 9, if I started off with 3 times 9 is 27. And if I add together the digits of 27, 2 plus 7 equals 9. Nice and straightforward. But some of you would have picked much larger numbers. So say we started with 15. Well, my first instruction, times it by 9. 15 times 9 is 135. And if I add together the digits of 135, I get 1 plus 3 is 4, plus 5 is 9. So I get 9 again. Let's take one more. What about if we do 23 times 9? (23 times 9 is 207. Again, if I add the numbers up, 2 plus 0 plus 7 is 9. And this special property, this property only works with multiples of 9. So whenever I have a number, a multiple of 9, or a number in the 9 times table, when I add together the digits, if I keep adding till I get to a 1-digit number, I'll always get 9. And that particular property means that this trick works. If I times the number by 9, add the digits up, I will always get 9. And then the rest of the maths comes quite quickly. I can see then if I take my 9 and subtract 5, I'm always going to get 4. And that told me that you were going to get D as your corresponding letter. Well, I can only think of one country off the top of my head that starts with the letter D, and that's Denmark. So the probability says that most people will have picked Denmark. Then I asked you to choose an animal beginning with that last letter. Well, my last letter was K. Maybe not as safe, because there are a few animals that start with a K, but I think lots of people will have thought of a kangaroo. And finally, a colour that starts with O. Well, again, I think orange is the obvious option. So we're using our properties of the 9 times table, which is a really special number property. And then we're using a bit of probability, a little bit of guesswork to say, oh, I really hope everyone chooses Denmark. I really hope everyone chooses kangaroo. But you can play this trick on anyone at home, just with a bit of multiplying by 9. If they want, obviously, you can let someone use a calculator to help them do the maths. But this kind of number trick will always work. So our second magic trick, pick a number. This time, you can pick any number you want. And I want you to start off by adding on 3. Nice and easy. Then I want you to multiply by 2. So depends what your number is. You might have decided that you might have chosen a really big number. You might want to choose a smaller number. Now we've got to times it by 2. Then add on 4. And then I want you to divide by 2. So half that number that you had. And then I want you to subtract the number that you started with. So whatever you've done, add on 3, multiply it by 2, add on 4, half it, and then take away what you started with. And I think, using my magical maths power, I think that you are left with 5. And how do I know that? Well, I know that I can use some sort of pictorial representations here to tell you how I know what you've done. So I'm going to say you've started with a number, and I'm just going to use a little red block to represent that number. And then I'm just going to carry on the process that I described to you. I'm going to add on 3. So I've just added on a little block of length 3. And then I'll times by 2. So I've got 2 red blocks and 2 3s. If I then add on 4, you can see how my pattern is growing. I've got 2 red blocks, 2 3s and a 4. Then when I half that, obviously I've got 2 red blocks and 2 3s, so I'm going to half that. I'll lose one of each of those. And half of 4 is 2. And hopefully you can now see where the last bit of magic comes in. If I just take away the number I started with, it doesn't matter what that number was, what that red block is. It could be 1, it could be 100. As long as I take it away, I always end up with 5. And that's how I know what you ended up with. Let's look at another one just like that. See if you can think about how we might represent this as we're doing it. So again, pick a number, any number you like. We're going to double it straight away, so make sure that it's a number that you can easily multiply. And then I want you to add on 9. And then add the number that you started with. Hopefully you can remember the number you started off. And then you need to divide that by 3. So you might need to write it down to work it out. If you've got a calculator handy, you can use that. Add on 4. And then finally, I want you to subtract the number you started with. And I can tell you that you've ended up with 7. If you followed my steps perfectly, then you should have ended up with 7. Again, the maths has done the magic for me. So think about how this works. This is really, really clever maths that we're doing here. So I started with a number that I just called it that red square. I doubled it so I had 2 of them. And then I added on 9. I added the red square that I started with so that I had 3 of them all together. You could put them all together in one block. And then when I divided that by 3, obviously 9 divided by 3 gives me 3. And if I've got divide those 3 red blocks by 3, I end up with 1 red block. Then I can add on my 4. And the magic bit right at the end, if I subtract the number that I started with, if I take off the thing I started with, no matter what that number was, whether it was 1,000, whether it was 230, even whether it was a fraction, if I started with a half, I always end up with 7. And all of this is just a precursor to using algebra. We can use algebra like this. Instead of having a red square, I might use a letter, I might use an X or maybe an N. And by using algebra, I can represent these relationships between different instructions, and I will always be able to see where I'm going to end up. And it's these types of relationships. We've seen some algebraic work here, and we looked at the special properties of numbers in the 9 times tables. We can use these things to give us relationships that always give us a mathematical trick or a bit of magic at the end. So I'm going to leave these 3 with you. Take them away. If there's someone at home, test their maths out and see if you can impress them by guessing what their final number's going to be. Thank you for tuning in today, Year 6, and I look forward to seeing you to look at some more magic maths and some more algebra in September when you join us. Thank you.